Hi, everyone, and welcome to How to Dane, a show about cultural differences. My name is Siri. I'm 21 years old and I'm from Holland. This summer, I decided to turn my life around, so I packed my bags, said goodbye to my typical Dutch life, and moved to Denmark. Without any Danish language or cultural knowledge, apart from what I learned from binge watching Netflix series as Rita and Borgen, I immersed myself in my new Danish life. The first few days I just watched and learned. I almost threw up while trying to pronounce Danish syllables, got into some one sided arguments with old Danish men on bikes who didn't appreciate my Dutch biking style, and made myself sad by converting grocery prices from Danish kroners to euros. But the more time I spent with the Danes, the more they started to fascinate me. Sometimes I just feel like asking my Danish friends and classmates, do you realize that some of your traditions are actually really weird? But still, I want to learn more about it. Who are these Hugo loving Vikings and how do I become one of them? That's why I started this show, to find out how to Dane. Every week, I invite a Danish expert, Daniel this time, and someone from a completely other nationality. We start an open conversation about our cultural differences and ask all the questions you normally wouldn't ask in fear of being too direct. This week, I invited Marcella and Daniel. I decided that if I wanted to understand the Danes, I should go back and try to understand how they became the special human beings that they are. That's why the theme of today's episode is growing up. I'm so excited to introduce my guests for today, but let's first start with a youthful song. Yes, okay. To fully understand the country, you need to understand what makes it different. Therefore, I did not only invite a Danish expert today, but also someone who grew up on the other side of the world. Hi, Marcella, how are you?
Hello, I'm super excited to be here.
Yes, we are good friends, but I'm really excited to now welcome you as my first guest on this show. Can you quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, well, I am Mexican from Guadalajara. I grew up there and then I moved to Colombia and then I moved to Europe and I lived here in Copenhagen for the past, well, I lived 6 months here and then I came back 3 months ago and just, yeah, enjoying the hygge.
Enjoying the Hugo.
Yeah.
Nice, thanks. I look forward to hearing more about it. But first, I want to introduce our second guest.
Yeah.
Hi, Daniel.
Hello.
You are our Danish expert for today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I hear.
Yeah. Where in Denmark are you from exactly?
I am from a part of Denmark called Jylland, where I was born in a city called Aarhus, and then I have lived most of my life at an island called Als,
An
or
island.
in the city called Tansted. It's like so enormously tiny. It's actually known for just like being a long road with a lot of houses on each side. So it's a very, very small village, and people actually don't know that much about it. But yes, that was where I lived for, I think it's 17 or 18 years actually. So that's what I call home.
That's what you call home and where you grew up, because we're talking about growing up, of course, today. I asked both of you to prepare an introduction question. I thought let's start the show on a positive note. So I asked you to think about your happiest childhood memory. Did you come up with something, Daniel?
Yeah, I come up with that I am in a lucky situation, and I think I have a lot, but one of them I treasure most is actually when I got my little brother, where, and I don't know if it's one of those stories where you actually can remember it or you just got it told, and it's like, okay, then I just imagine it in my head. But I remember that I was at my cousin and my aunt's place when my mother and father was at the hospital, where my brother got born, and then they come back, and then the first thing was my cousin was like running over to see this new little person, and then my aunt was just taking him, grabbing him aside, because it was Daniel is the first one who has to see his little brother, and that was, and it's like I can't live without that person. He is so important for me. So getting him is one of like the best thing I can ever imagine for my childhood.
How old were you when your brother was born?
I was 3 years old.
So you still remember, or you think
Yeah,
you remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I choose to believe that I remember
Yeah.
it, and it's not by stories. But no, I'm so grateful for him. So that's like one of the best thing that happened to me.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for sharing. Marcella. your happiest childhood memory, or one of your
Well,
happiest?
I also have a lot of memories, but mine also has to do with one of my siblings actually. And it was we used to play in the street a game called something like kicked bottle, more or
Mm.
less, with our neighbors. And yeah, I think just like playing in the street with my brother and with our uh, other neighbors, it's just a very happy memory. Yeah, and just like having a tree house outside
You
my
had a
parents'
tree
home.
house.
Yeah, but I mean, it was very improvised. It was not like a proper tree. We would just basically climb up the tree, and that would be our tree house. Yeah, so I think having like this relationship like with the city and with our neighbors, I think those are very happy memories. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. Now I almost feel guilty that I didn't have a memory with my siblings. I mean, my siblings were there, but one of my favorite memories is actually, I know my mom and dad are listening right now, but one of my favorite memories they dragged me into, it's when I was around 8 years old, I think, when my parents took me to our first real concert, me and my brothers. We got it for Sinterklaas, the Dutch version of Christmas. And the concert was by the band Doemar, and it was in a really big stadium, so it was really nice, and I just remember it really vividly. So I also wanted to play one of their songs, so this is one of Doemar's songs, a Dutch song. Let me see how to start it. This one.
Yes.
So that was one of my favorite childhood memories. I now just want to start this really open discussion about growing up and what are our differences and how did we become the people that we are now. But first, I wanted to create some kind of start point, you know? So I'm just curious right now, what do you think the biggest differences are between your Danish and your Mexican childhood?
Oh,
That's a hard one.
If you had to say it right now.
the differences. Um, I think the differences would be in the kind of how we play. I would say that in the games we play as
Yeah,
children.
definitely.
I remember that in my childhood it was a lot like you have to how can I say it? It was very based on, for example, movies when they have like I don't know if you remember like Yu-Gi-Oh cards and Pokemon cards or whatsoever. So that was very quickly where it was like we have to be a part of this. We have to be like the ones in the movies and so on. But I'm so sad about it in that way because it's not how it is anymore in Denmark. I know that because it's not now. It's really if I can get an iPad, then I am like satisfied, and that is enough. We can play on the internet and so on like that. So I miss those time, and I think I don't know. Did you?
I thought you were going to say like playing like nature or like going to the forest or things like that. I mean, for
Because
me,
that's what
for
you
me that's
remember.
like Danish childhood.
It is. It is.
Yeah. I just imagine Danes like in
we
the
we had we I
forest.
remember we had some times we were actually running around. That was actually in school where we played war. That's so awful game actually where we were running around with sticks and throwing like
Yeah, exactly.
how to say stones and after each other saying that was bombs and now you got hit, now you have to stand alone in the forest for 10 minutes waiting to get alive again. So it was not the most funniest game we had. I would say that. Did you do that in
No.
no
did parents but did you just do it when your parents weren't watching or your teachers, or did they really stimulate it?
I will never say that this was stimulated in any way. I think I had the feeling that it was how can I say it wasn't like a problem that it was I'm going to say it stupid games because it was more like the feeling is like everything is going to be all right anyway. What doesn't kill you make you stronger. And I know it's not going to be like a game where you are actually in danger, but it's not a big problem if I ate a stick or whatever I did when I was small. There was not like going to be a lot of rules saying now you have to like watch your baby for 10 days and be sure that
Sounds like a very Viking game.
yeah, kind of, but it's yeah, I don't know. It's more like you learn that it's for example, I remember I was very small. I had a friend and me. It was so stupid. We once crawl around and then he had a bad habit by eating, you know,
Stones?
cigarette when it's done.
Oh, the
Oh,
butts of
Yeah,
cigarettes.
exactly.
oh,
Yeah.
And my habit was like to eating the matches. So we're like,
oh.
and I was like, I did it once,
Good
and then
friends.
then my parents had to tell me that's not a good idea. So it's like, I think I was a very stupid kid that learned by doing, but I'm still here. So.
What I also kind of hear in your stories is that you feel like you didn't have a really strict childhood. So were there a lot of rules or?
I will say, and sorry, mom, if you're listening, but we actually have that discussion a lot because I have a little brother, and we are often talking about that the first child is always like the child where you learn to have a child. So there's some way. For example, one of the rules I had, where, for example, you have to be this old before you can go out, or you have to be back at this time. My brother didn't have those rules because my parents realized, okay, maybe it's a little bit too strict, but I will never define my child as there was a lot of rules and a lot of things I couldn't do. It was always very, very caring and trying to like bring me the best at all. And we're still talking about this day. I remember clearly. We were in an amusement park where we could drive on an ATV car. And I drove with my father the first time, and it was a very, very chill, relaxed turn. But when my brother tried it, it was an adventure turn with hops and so on. Because now he had tried it, I know it wasn't so dangerous with the. So that's. I think the first one.
That's like your metaphor for how you were raised, right?
Yeah,
That's like...
it's more with me they figured out how it was to have a child, and then they knew more about it when they got my brother. I'll say that. So
They were a bit more open to...
yeah, I will say that, but I will never call my childhood strict in any way.
Well, what about you, Marcella? So to
Well,
make the comparison.
Like if I had to summarize my childhood, it's basically food, family, like grandparents, candy shop, and the like street food, but outside the church. So I remember like going to my grandparents' place every Friday and every Sunday, and we would go like the fun part of the day was to go to church and then have like a snack outside of church, and then the next day like wake up in the morning and go to the market and have like a orange juice. I mean, very simple things actually, but it was just, yeah, it all revolved around like being with our grandparents, and I wanted to be a cashier. So I would always like play with my, I would sell stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
But in the sense of we were talking about rules and how strict your childhood was, did it feel like a strict childhood to you, or like?
Not really. I mean, we had like 3 rules. First of all, you have to finish like the food that they serve you. Second, you always have to say thank you and please, otherwise you're very, very impolite. And yeah, no, and that's it. I mean, yeah, no, I wouldn't say it was very strict.
And I remember we had the rule as well. You can't say I don't like it before you have like tasted it.
Oh yeah, my father. I hated that. I hated that. Yeah.
But did
terrible.
that mean that you actually have to like eat it all up, even though you hated it when you were?
Yeah. If I said I don't like
You
it,
didn't?
he would make me eat everything.
I remember.
That's terrible.
I think I got it like a little bit a milder way that I had to taste it, and if I still said I don't like it, that would be accepted.
Yeah, that's accepted.
But I could never say I don't like it because it looks weird. I had to try it, and that was sometimes very good, and sometimes it was awful.
Well, that's a similarity then.
Yeah.
Between Mexico and Denmark.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe in the Netherlands as well.
No, we always had to finish it also. Yeah, but my parents are really good in preparing food, of course, so I did. But yeah, I just wanted to go a bit deeper into, you said that family is really important for you, like in the way you grew up.
Yeah.
And you spend a lot of time with them.
Yeah.
And for me, that kind of is like the Latin American way. Like your family is number one, whatever. And of course, in my childhood, family was also important, but I feel like it's on a different level in Latin America. So I was just wondering, like, how much time did you spend with your parents growing up? And I just want to see if there's a difference there. Just curious.
Yeah, I mean, all of my childhood was basically with my grandparents, I would say. because my father, like, he's very hardworking, and he would work for the whole day, and my mom didn't work, but my mom was always with her mom, so she would bring us with my grandma, and yeah, I don't know, it's just we are very like family oriented, and like this family values, we learn them since we are kids, and
And your grandparents lived really close to you, or?
yeah, like 2 blocks from they used to live like 2 blocks from our
And
home.
would you say that's typical for Mexico, or?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, first of all, you so in order for you to leave your parents' home, you have to get married, and then you have to find a house close to your parents' house, because I mean, yeah, you just do everything with your
You
family.
stay with your family.
So yeah, exactly, yeah. So
What about you? So
I will say for me, family is pretty important as well, and I consider my family members some of the closest friends and family members I have. But I think for me it's more like the closer family part, where it's mother, father, and brother, where I see my grandparents and uncle and aunts. To the big parties like Christmas and something like that. And in some way, it. I remember when we have to, like, when we were done studying, I had to like go for the university or wherever we want to go. There is like a vibe saying that you have to like move out from your parents' place and to another city, because it's, I will not say weird, but it's like you have to like get out and try something else, instead of like staying home at the same place every time. And that doesn't matter actually if you just move to another house in the same city. In every way it should be like the logic way to like stay there if you're in the same city, because it's like then you are with your family, and it's maybe not that expensive as a student and so on, but it's, there's really a mentality saying you have to like get out and get your own place, when you're like in that age, or also actually before.
so you're kind of, you feel like you were stimulated to take some distance from your family also?
No, I will not say distance, but more the there's more like a vibe saying that you have to like go out and like start a way, or start, how do you say, start your own adventure in some kind of way, and try things, and then there's always like an open door you can come back home to if it is, and if everything fails. But it has actually been like among, I would say, a lot of Danish students, that is like people are like, oh, are you still living home? It's like if you're like 30 and you are on a date with someone and saying you want to go to my place, my parents living there, I can assure you that will be a big fat no. So
And in Mexico, Marcela, if someone told me I still live with my parents, like, would that be a no for you, or is that more
definitely.
normal?
Yeah,
Yes.
that would
Okay.
be a no,
So still,
yeah.
well, you are.
But it's
saying
very
people,
common, no?
Okay,
Yeah.
but just you, yeah. But as in the average Mexican would maybe think it's normal, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
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 I mean, we are very dependent on our family for everything, and of course, like, you just want to stay at your parents' place because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're going a bit all over the place, but one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, at what time you are considered an adult in your culture? Because if I hear this, then you're an adult faster in Denmark than you are in Mexico. So.
Yeah.
Oh, that's. I think it's a hard question, because legally and like expected, 18 you're starting to be like grown up, and we also have that called, I don't know what it's called in English, but in Danish it's called confirmation, where you're 14. It's a tradition where you like it's called you're entering into the line of adults.
Like a religious thing, or
Yeah, it's a religious thing.
And what do you do to enter? Like a test, or?
And that's also like the way you enter.
Do you know how to use the washing machine?
Yeah. That's and then you have to like a multiple choice. No, actually, the thing is you have to like go to church, and do that for, I can't remember, it's 8 or 10 times, and you actually go into the teaching from a priest, where you learn about all this. And then there's the big day where you doing the ceremony where they ask, "Do you believe in God?" and you say yes, and then you actually have like a sentence or something from the Bible you have to read, and then you are
An adult.
yeah, I kind of did, but that's actually what they say. Now you're entering in the adults line, and that's so weird that you have to like enter it in when you're 14.
Yeah.
And there's like people are saying it on that specific day, but like afterwards you're still like seen more as a teenager, and obviously legally it's 18, but I'm 26 now, and I'm feeling so far away from being an adult.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
can
Yeah.
get- so it's, I think it's a subjective way of thinking.
It's of course.
But legally 18 in Denmark. And
I'm guessing the legal age is the same in Mexico, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the same, but I think we are we also have the confirmation thing.
okay.
But it like nobody really cares about the confirmation, I would say. It's more about when we are like financially independent. That's when we're considered adults. Otherwise, you're still a child.
Yeah, so a student would still be considered a child.
Definitely, even a 26-year-old if he's not,
Of
if
course,
he cannot
yeah.
pay the bills that he's. Yeah.
So that's what being an adult means to you, kind
Yeah.
of being financially
Well,
independent.
not to me. I'm an adult since I'm 18. I want to think. I don't know if my parents agree, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I just want to go back a little bit, like a bit younger maybe. I just want to go back to when we were 10 years old, and I just kind of want to compare, like, what did your days look like? Was it really similar or really different?
What did I do when I was 10?
Yeah, it's a while ago.
I was in.
You were eating the
the cigarette butt.
No. That was when I was 1 or 2 years old. No, I was in school. I think I was in 4th or 5th grade actually. And my day was pretty much built up about waking up, getting driven, get to school, and then I was there, and then I had like an activity afterwards. I was playing floorball, like hockey indoor, and then if I didn't went there, I was coming home with the bus, and then often watching TV, and then eat dinner, and then go to sleep or do my homework. And that was actually, and that's also what has been so awful sometimes. I would say that when I grew up, it's like it has been very much, Control C, Control V, repeat. And that's, but that's like the way I feel that's actually pretty common. Or you get one of your friends from school with you home, and you do some activities together. I would say that's like.
So normal day would be waking up, going to school, some kind of activity, sports, and then going home and get a free evening kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Where there's often where you like sit and watch something on the television or something like that.
Yeah.
That's how I remember.
Same question for you.
I think it was very similar. I remember I was a fan of spelling bee, like the spelling bee contest. So I would practice when I went back home, and with my mom. And instead of watching the TV, for me it was like calling my friends, and we would spend like 2 hours on the phone talking about I don't know what, but I mean, because
you didn't meet with them, so you didn't visit them after school, or
sometimes, but I was only allowed. Yeah, that was a rule. I was only allowed to do that once a week. Okay. So like we would invite each other, to our homes. Otherwise call on the phone.
And what about you? Were you allowed to bring people over every day? Or?
Yeah, but that's always like been when I have talked about where I lived. I was very much like on the countryside, so there was a restriction called the bus company didn't really believe in the place we live, so the bus was like driving one time every hour or maybe less. So it was actually quite hard to get friends back home because it took so long time to actually get there. And when they come there, you should always like coordinate it with the parents, because if they first were there, they actually couldn't come back unless somebody got to pick them up, or we have to like drive them back. So it was very actually determined by the transportation and the time used for that actually. So sometimes I was lucky that my school classes was okay with it, but sometimes it wasn't. So
But
it was.
like public transportation, would you take public transportation as a kid?
Yeah,
Or
I did it. I think when I got to fourth grade, and it was actually also where I get my first mobile phone, so
oh
I
yeah.
could always
So
call my dad.
fourth grade, that's 10 years, or
10 years. I would say fourth, fifth grade. 10, 11 years old. Then
Mm.
we started to like. My father had to drive to work, so he could like put us into the school and drive to work afterwards. But when we had to get home, it was actually often with the public transportation. Actually.
yeah. And what about you? Were you allowed to use public transportation as a kid?
No, but my brother was when he turned 16. He was allowed to take the bus,
Oh.
but I was never allowed to take the bus. I was
16 is
yeah.
already really old for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
It's a big city.
Yeah, it's a big city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But why couldn't you? If it's okay, Martin.
Because it was dangerous, I guess, to
Okay.
take public transport on my own. Like being a woman, I
Yeah.
think it's quite hard, and growing up as a woman in Mexico. Um, and for my brother, I mean, yeah, they allowed him to take the bus, but it was, I mean, my parents would always be worried about him, and he was like very proud because now he could take the bus and he was an adult. So yeah, I think in that sense it's very different.
Yeah.
They would drive us.
So I hear, of course, and I know stories about Mexico.
Yeah.
And then I'm wondering if you always felt safe as a child. And I think that could be a difference between growing up in Denmark and Mexico. But maybe that's just my idea of Latin America and not what it actually is.
Yeah, I think it has changed a lot on the past 2 decades, or maybe the last decade, because I remember playing in the streets with my cousins and with my siblings. But then my younger sister, she's 21 now, 22, and she never got to play in the streets. And like, I mean, for her, I think it was a different childhood because for her it was a bit more unsafe.
Yeah.
But I think that for me it was actually quite okay to yeah, I never felt unsafe.
You never felt unsafe.
No.
But you think your sister maybe did feel unsafe, like?
Well, you know, with the phone and like technology, I think that, like, they never question like other ways of growing up, and for her, like, playing in the streets was never a thing.
Yeah.
And for us it was very important because that's the way that we made friends. And yeah, so it was very different, and I can say that I lived like a very happy, like, and joyful childhood. Yeah.
Yeah. And what about you? So did you ever feel unsafe growing up in Denmark?
No, actually, not at all. For us, it was actually also, and that's also weird that electronic can do that. But also, when you had your phone, and we had like the rules that you should always, like, if you're taking the bus, for example, say I'm taking the bus and I'm here. So they always had like an idea where you were in the world. And that actually made a lot of safe space for us. I remember one time where it's actually I had forgot to charge it, and we couldn't get in contact with the other, and that actually ended up in, like, my mother was coming to the bus station and see if we still were there because she couldn't reach us, and she was starting to get a little concerned. So the phone has actually made it safer, but I have never, like.
So with your phone, you were allowed to go, well, not everywhere,
No,
of course, but you.
there was, like, you could always reach each other, and I have never had the idea that I felt unsafe at any point at all. So that's very, very
And
nice. Yeah.
when did you get a phone? Like, at the moment you got a phone, were you also allowed to go more places, or?
I was allowed to go to the mall.
the
So that
mall?
was, but that was when I was 15. But that's because I'm 28 years old, so it was, I guess it was around the same year. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just see. I think I'm just going to play a song now.
Okay.
Yes, and this was actually a song. I asked you guys to bring a song that reminded you of your childhood.
Yeah.
This was the song you brought, Daniel.
Yeah, this song is very special to me because it's a song my mother used to sing for us when we had to, like, fall asleep. It was a song she sang, and it's like it's about a a child that's going to sleep, and when he closes his eyes, he's like going to this amazing adventure place where he like there are princess and so on. And when the light come, you have to return home from this wonderland because you're waking up and see it. So I have heard that song so many times, and actually I was on an interrated trip with some of my friends. I think I was 17, and I told them about this. And for the rest of the tour, he like demanded that I sang this song for him so he could fall asleep on this trip.
Oh.
For the rest of the, so in that way, it has also followed me when I grew up.
That's really cute.
Yeah, so this song is pretty important to me.
Okay. Well, we were just trying to reflect also a little
Yeah.
bit while the song were playing, and I think we were saying that maybe the difference we find between a Mexican childhood and a Danish childhood is that we all feel very free, but that feeling of freedom was also kind of created by your parents being maybe more protective in Mexico.
Yeah.
So like the box you could feel free in was smaller in Mexico than it was in Denmark. Can I say it that way?
Yeah, definitely.
That
I think
reflects it?
we're a bit like overprotected and a bit like spoiled by our family members. But I think it also has to do like with gender. Like I'm guessing that my brother would have similar experiences as Daniel. Yeah, I mean, I was very calm and like a very calm kid. So
But still, I mean, I'm just trying to say, like, your brother was allowed to go by bus for the first time
Yeah.
at 16.
yeah,
Daniel just casually mentioned an interrail at 17, which is
yeah.
where you travel like through all of Europe.
Europe, yeah.
Yeah.
would they also allow that for women, for example?
Yeah, that would not be any problem. I think there's like, and that's again back to the part where it's like the first when the first child in the line come and ask, and it's always like, "Phew, is is this going to be safe? Is that
Yeah.
what should we do?" But when you're like, I remember I had that conversation about, is it okay? I had, for example, had to go to this interrail where I remember my father was not quite happy about it, but my mother was also like, you have to like let him live his life as well, grow up and learn. So in that way, there was like discussions and thoughts about is it safe and so on. But I think it was more free to like, you have to do this to like develop and
The same
turn
thing
into a
they're
person.
saying at the moment you turn 18, right? It's like
Yeah.
going to the world and discover it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I don't think that is like based on what gender you are. I think that I could might as well have been a girl saying I want to do that. And have
Maybe
the same
it's
images.
more open to dialogue families here. I think like in Mexico there's really like a difference between the parents, which are like the adults of the story, and then the kids. So the kids I mean there isn't much space to like dialogue, I would say. So it's always like how the adult sets the standards.
Yeah.
I would say.
They say something and you do it.
Yeah.
And it's not really expected of you to talk back to them or to argue with them.
Not much. Not much. I mean, you just trust your parents, and like if they say that you should go on a trip, then you should. But if they never mention it, then okay, it's also fine. Like, yeah.
Well, with your story, I hear like I wanted to go on this interrail trip. My dad was not sure, and you have a discussion about it.
Yeah, I would say I think, and that's maybe also a thing I am going to like going to be afraid of when I get kids one day. Is like that you can say to a certain point, because I tell you so. But then when they get a certain age, they will ask, why do you say that? And you don't have any answer for that. And then I think you actually are forced to like take the dialogue where you have to hear all the argument and then actually get to that. So you actually lose the authority in a kind of way, just saying it's just because I say so that you can't go. And I think when people when you get a certain age, you start to like ask question about it, and then you automatically have to talk about it because you can't like hide behind that. It's just like that.
Yeah. It's funny that you already mentioned like if you're a parent one day. I mean, I don't know if you guys want to be parents one day. But if you want to be parents, I was just wondering, would you want to raise your child in your own country? And maybe what do you want that it's different for them than your childhood was? Like,
I think if I get children, I think I will actually. That sounds so narcissistic, but I think I will go a little bit more back to how I was raised contra how they're raised now, because and that's just one of the big issues for me. It's like children now in Denmark, I think it's actually all over the world, have so easy access to screens and going on social medias and like you, the thing we were talking about that I was a stupid child going out with a stick and throwing with rocks at others and like that called that a game and it was war.
But it wasn't so stupid after all, I would say.
No, exactly, because you got to say, okay, I had a stick in my hand, and then in my head it was like I was in a war, I had a sword and it was like that. And
so your imagination.
Exactly, and it was like it was basically a stick and a stone, and not like a game I downloaded. But I'm so happy that I didn't use like all my time as a child sitting in front of a screen. So I hope that I can kind of take it back. To that.
Maybe if you move back to your islands, you can. Right? What about you, Marcella? Would you like to raise your children in Mexico, or? And I mean, also, what do you hope has improved in Mexico by the time?
I think I agree with like going back to basics, to like simple ways of having fun as a child and growing up as a child. And I think I would raise my kids in Mexico, but like, I mean, this is the perfect idea, but like half the year in Mexico and then half the year like somewhere else, so that they can like explore the world. And I mean, I wouldn't like them to be raised in this very like traditional and at a certain point very conservative society. But I also think it has like it I don't know, it just like fosters really nice values like around family and community and just enjoying the simple things in life, which in other places are a given. So yeah, I think I would raise them in Mexico partly, and then the other half in um, Denmark and
in Denmark or
But
whatever.
I think in kind of way it's also what traveling does, and it doesn't matter if you're like 2 or 20 when you start. I think it actually gives you some new perspective and say, okay, they live their life like this or this, and actually helps you form the person you're going to you be. So I think also like take people children up for traveling is like so important in so many ways.
Yeah, the song you just heard reminds you of Mexican parties, right, Marcella?
Yeah,
parties in your childhood.
My whole family would dance that song. And I was just feeling very festive, so.
Okay, nice. I think we now come to my favorite parts of the show. It's time for Is It Weird or Is It Danish? I will just introduce it a little bit for you. Sometimes I see Danish people doing something really weird in my ID, and then I'm just not sure whether they are actually weird or is it just part of a Danish tradition. And I don't want to offend anyone, so normally I don't ask them directly, you know? So that's why I started this. Is it weird or is it Danish?
All right.
Where I will describe something weird I saw in the streets of Copenhagen. And I will ask my Danish expert of the week, this time Daniel, is it weird or is it Danish?
Yes.
Are you ready, Daniel?
I'm so ready.
I think this week it's maybe not the weirdest thing, but just something I have been wondering about. So, close to where I live in Suhan, there is an elementary school. They have their playground in front of the building, and it's a really cool playground, like really open. They have like a skate park and football goals and whatever. But it's also next to a really busy road where I always bike. So every time I bike there, I am just thinking about, you know, a ball rolling on the street, a child running after it, not thinking, a car coming, and a really dangerous accident happening. So, yeah, what do you think? Is it weird or is it Danish to have a playground next to a road without a fence?
I will actually say I think it's both in a kind of way. It's very weird Danish because it's so many places where they do that and it's so stupid. So I would actually call it it's Danish, but
it's Danish, but it's weird.
It's super weird. But it's also like the part where I think that like the adults that work there are like having the idea that they have so much authority that they can say, "Don't go onto the road," and hope that that's going to happen. But I remember they did in the same in my school, and I was also to a road, and we ran out after the ball. So it's weird and stupid, and it's Danish.
But you don't know about many accidents happening. Or...
No, I haven't. I've actually never heard about that. It had ended up with.
Yeah,
somebody
so
getting hurt,
probably it works. I mean, it does give this Danish feeling of raising your children really open, you know, not putting them in a fenced playground.
No.
But it can also be dangerous.
Yeah.
Okay, so conclusion of the week. Playgrounds without a fence, they are weird, but also dangerous.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to thank you guys so much for coming today. And
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I feel like I'm starting to understand the Danish already a bit more just by learning about their childhood. Okay.